I'm going to show you how to create scatter plots on Google Spreadsheet. It's actually pretty easy. And so we're going to start with the 11th grade data. So what we're going to do if we want to create a scatter plot is we need to select first all the data. You select that by just clicking and dragging, for example, to the last data point. Once all your data is selected, then you will go to Insert, Chart. When you insert a chart, there's a lot of options that are going to come up, and what we want is the scatter plot. And the scatter plot looks like this. If you don't find it in this menu, then you can go to Chart Types, and the scatter plot will be here as well. Now, before we insert it, we need to customize it with a bunch of things to meet the criteria. Number one, it needs to have a title. Notice it has already added a title for us. The second is the legend. I like to put the legend at the top. You'll see why later when we go to regression models. A lot of other things we can change, but what we want to look at are the axes. So right now we're going to talk about the horizontal axis, which is the x-axis. If you need to, you can change the title here. If you want, you can make the text larger. Doesn't really matter. That text size is fine. And then here is where we start to talk about minimums, maximums. So the minimum value is 0, the maximum value is 6. I can see that here on my graph, and that's totally fine by me. But I need my grid lines to make sense. So an appropriate scale is a requirement for your graphs. And 1.5 days absent does not make sense. So this is a great example of not an appropriate scale. Students are absent for whole number days, and so we're going to change the grid lines, and you can just mess around with it a little bit. And you see when I change this to 6, there are 5 grid lines. If I change it down to 3, there would be only 3 grid lines. So you'll get used to this as you make more and more scatter plots, but ultimately I want these to make sense. The minor grid lines would be like in between. So for example, this would be 0.5, 1, 1.5, 2, 2.53, but we don't need that. To adjust our y-axis, we actually scroll back up and we change this to the left vertical axis. So now we're doing all the same edits except for the y-axis. So I'm going to change the font for the fun of it to 15. Test score percentage is fine. Minimum and maximum, for example, you see this automatically started our graph at 30. If you wanted your graph to start at 0 and go to 100, that would be fine too. So notice it changed the scale of our graph. Now we need an appropriate scale. This goes from 0, 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, and that's actually fine. Maybe what I want to do is I want to add some grid lines in between so that it would be like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. Maybe I want there to be more like, oops, no, I want it to be like 3. So it'd be like 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60. So that all is up to you. So our graph is fine now. It has a title. It has labels for the X and Y axes, and the scale is appropriate. So I'll go ahead and insert. Notice it inserts it. I can just drag it around. You need to place your scatter plot in that yellow box. So I can just kind of resize it if I want to, drag it around a little bit. Now, if there's anything that you need to change, you'll just click on this little arrow here, go to Advanced Edit, and then that will bring back up your menu and you can make changes. Have fun.